since we got out early, some people have gone on home and they're listening remotely. And I'm trying to think, I can't tell you how many people have said they're just going to Zoom in. So we do have people Zooming in, and if they have any questions, we will be glad to hear their questions too. First of all, we would like to have Department of Community Affairs. Commissioner Nunn, thank you. And thank you for always being ready to help us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to be with you today. And I will be as brief as you would like. I know you've got a long agenda. Thank you to all who are joining us. I can't figure out where the camera is, but to everyone online. Working off of the amended budget, your tracking sheet, page 19, section 16. There really are three key amendments that are included in our budget request. The first of those that I will touch on is an enterprise change. So it's reflected in pretty much every one of these programs. And that's the starting at 16.1.1, the increase in funds for a $5,000 pay increase to full-time benefit eligible state employees to address agency retention and recruitment needs. The collective total of this for this line item in our budget is $569,470. And we appreciate your thoughtful consideration on that. Moving on, unless there are questions, I'll take you all the way back to the second page under 1611, just state economic development programs. And under that line item, 1611.2, we have a recommendation of $112,627,760. And this is related to the announcement in December in the Jasper, Morgan, Newton, Walton County Joint Development Authority of the Rivian project. These funds are intended to be used for land acquisition, site prep, and rail spur construction. I know that Commissioner Wilson has spoken of those earlier, and I anticipate that John Moffitt will be able to address any further questions. But that is that line item. And then moving all the way down into the 16.14 under the One Georgia Authority, 1614.1 is a $1,716,400 recommendation. And this relates to one-time funding for the full cost of a Lake Allatoona storage agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, which, as I said in my earlier hearing, this is very much akin to an FY19 recommendation dealing with water storage for out through 2050 in Lake Lanier. About 10.5 billion gallons that enables us to preserve that capacity for that part of the state, represents about 6% of the total capacity in the lake. So those are the three recommendations that we have in our amended budget, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
I've got it. Well, I appreciate this, and I understand the importance of the water storage.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my questions is that, we've had so many people apply for the new money that's coming out for the new federal money for broadband. There's just no way everybody's going to get that money. And we have such a gap in our coverage on broadband throughout the state. Do you foresee any other funds being available and for this, for the people that don't get it?
Absolutely. And I appreciate the question. As you know, since the leadership of the House Rural Development Council in 2018, we have been an instrumental part in advocating for rural broadband, in all corners of our state. We know from the map, how much need there is. It's substantial. It is mostly concentrated in rural parts of the state. I participated, as did some of you, on the governor's rural or broadband review panel for the American Rescue Plan funds, the state fiscal recovery funds. If I recall, it was a lot of review, but if I recall, there were between 170 and 180 applications for a limited amount of funding, hundreds of millions of dollars, but that's probably towards 4 billion in requests. I do know that working with the broadband office at GTA, that there is additional funding through several federal programs, which they can speak to. Specifically, there is additional money coming through the State Fiscal Recovery Fund. There is money that comes through the infrastructure bill. There's a capital improvements project, and I can let them speak to those pieces. Also, as you recall, last year, and this predated the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, the legislature appropriated funds to One Georgia for the purpose of advancing rural broadband in the state. As I've spoken to previously, we were prepared to launch a broadband grant program with those funds that would have launched really at the same time that the ARPA funds of a much more significant amount came out. So we have not actually deployed those funds yet. And it is our intent, as this first round of broadband announcements come out, in the next couple of weeks, I would imagine, that there will be some identifiable gaps, that perhaps don't meet the higher federal standard. Because look, the federal threshold increased fairly significantly, and rightfully so in this most round in their stimulus funds. There may be some gaps that we would look to address, and we expect that those will be particularly in the most rural areas. So that the short answer to your question is yes, I think there are actually a number of sources of funds for those projects that don't get funded in the first round of several.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Nunn, for all the work that you do and for your friendship. I got one question. I read that there were $354 million available to Georgia homeowners for mortgages and utilities. Can you kind of expound on that a little?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for the question. And to be very clear, this is a homeowner assistance fund that also was capitalized with American Rescue Plan dollars. We launched this last week, Georgia Mortgage Assistance.ga.gov. I'm confident my folks will text me if I got that wrong, but Georgia Mortgage Assistance spelled out .ga.gov. And we are up and running. We actually did a pilot program because we had to wait for a fairly long period from August when we submitted our application to Treasury or our plan to Treasury until we received our approval the beginning of last week. So we ran a pilot program, have already been able to assist homeowners in about 40 counties around the state, but we are up and running, off and running. The team is working very diligently on that, and I would encourage you, for any homeowner, so this is a companion program to rental assistance, for homeowners to apply for those funds. Georgia Mortgage Assistance.ga.gov.
To the committee members on that.
Absolutely.
And a
Absolutely.
description. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from people that are listening online? No questions? Well, thank you. And thank you so much for, no more questions.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
much. And thank you for coming. Economic development. She's talking. She's bringing up the wrong thing.
Good afternoon,
Well,
Madam
good
Chair and committee
afternoon,
members.
As y'all can see, this is not Pat Wilson, but
The better looking version.
yes,
better-looking
yes.
version, yes.
And John Moffett is the financial person for the Department of Economic Development. And we're sorry Pat couldn't be with us. He met with me yesterday. And John, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, Commissioner Wilson sends his regards. He is out with a prospect today, and so hopefully that will be good news coming for us. Like Commissioner Nunn mentioned, there's not a lot of items on our FY amended 22 budget. Most of the items are the salary increases for business recruitment and retention. Those are the only items that actually hit our budget. And we're thankful for that because those are items that are very near and dear to us, and we do have a pretty substantial turnover in our department right now. The state is opening up thanks to all the decisions by the committees, the legislature, and the governor, and that's really been beneficial to our department. During the COVID pandemic, we had one of our best years ever. I'll just give you some of the numbers that we've had during the year. We had almost $4 billion in direct spend in the film industry. The Council for the Arts administered over 280 grants. That's the most grants they've ever administered to help that industry recover from the pandemic. And that industry and the tourism industry are probably the hardest hit of all the industries in the state, because those are where people are going out and visiting and things like that. When people are staying home, they're not out there doing those things, going to restaurants, going to hotels and the art exhibits and things like that. Global commerce, an amazing year. Global commerce had $11 billion in new investment and over 33,000 jobs recruited. That's all new between existing industry and new investment. So that was amazing. International trade, they serviced over 1,300 companies, and 84 of those companies are small businesses that are defined by less than 100 employees. So those are some of the numbers that we had. Tourism, although it was slow, we moved up during the year from the number 7 spot to the number 5 spot in overnight visitation. So that's out of all 50 states. So a lot of it goes to thanks to all your hard work and keeping this state open, because that's really what has happened. And we're seeing the results now just magnified. We have so many projects in the pipeline. Commissioner Nunn mentioned Rivian. That is a huge project, 7,500 jobs. We spoke to you about that yesterday, Madam Chair. So we're just hoping things like that continue. We do have tremendous success in rural Georgia. We shared some of that information with you yesterday. So we're trying to hit all parts of the state and do the best we can. And so far, we've been very successful.
Do I have any questions? Oh, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned something about vacancies. How many vacancies do you have now?
We have out of 178 positions. As of January 15th, we had 144 filled. So that's 34 vacancies we have.
34, okay. And the 2 project managers that you added to hire in FY22,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have any candidates?
Actually, they'll be filled the beginning of February. The 2 candidates will fill those
Okay.
positions in February 1st.
All right,
Yes, ma'am.
February 1, okay. All right. No questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Forestry.
Madam Chairwoman, how are you? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lorimeyer. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure to be with the group today, and just thankful for the opportunity to continue to serve our state and continue to serve what I believe is probably one of the best teams that our state has, and that's our team at the Georgia Forestry Commission. So thankful for that. I will say that I've got Michelle Gray. She's with me today. She's our financial administration director. So Michelle's here for any of the difficult questions that you may have around our finances today. But yeah, the Forestry Commission is doing great. I'm pleased to say that. I will say I want to point out a couple of accomplishments that we had last year before I get into our amended fiscal budget. Last year, you may recall that this committee approved this body approved a little bump in our work comp premium because of some accidents that we had in our agency, and we really elevated safety amongst our agency, moving our safety officer into our deputy director's office position, and really seeing some positive results on that front. So just wanted to let you know we're responding to that concern that we had inside our agency, and positive results are being had there. Our Forest Protection Department, who is responsible for protecting Georgia's forest from wildfire, and then participating in mitigation efforts, had a tremendous year last year. In the middle of a pandemic, had a record year with landowner assistance on prescribed fires and plowing and harrying to prevent wildfires on property, in forest all around our state. So really excited about that. We touched over 5,800 landowners doing that. Had a record low fire season. We were blessed with some good weather on that front. So I will say that the scientists that predict fire weather and behavior are predicting an above normal fire season for this coming year. So we're certainly planning for that and anticipating and working hard to do our part to protect Georgia's forest from wildfire and that threat. Our foresters, our management department, they visited over 7,700 landowners and touched over 600,000 acres, giving advice. So really proud of that work. So we continue to serve well. I will turn my attention now to the amended fiscal budget. And just as the two agency heads before me mentioned, the enterprise across the board proposal from the governor's office to increase pay and increase 401 contributions, and the added benefit of the 40 hours withdrawal of 40 hours annual leave hits our agency. And for the amended years, $2.82 million for the amended year. We're extremely thankful for that. We believe that's a huge step in the right direction to address some of the worker challenges that we face inside of our agency. I will also say that in addition to that, on line 26, 3.2 on your tracking document, you'll notice that there's a provision for funds to replace firefighting equipment that has exceeded its expected useful life and to improve ranger safety. And that is for 7 dozers, 3 tractors to pull trailers that with the dozers on them. And then it also includes 8 trailers. And that total is $3.02 million. And that was our normal bond package for next year, fiscal year 23, but that was pulled forward for the amended year by the governor. That's his recommendation, and we support that and appreciate that. I will note that it's been a while since we have purchased the trailers that haul equipment, lowboy trailers, and since this number has been published, we've come to realize that there's about $150,000 delta change in what the price was that was used for this number and what the actual price is on the marketplace. And that's attributed to obviously supply chain issues and concerns from our vendor. So just wanted to make this committee aware of that. Quickly, I'll add up and I'll finish up. Are there any questions on the amended year fiscal budget? I'll be glad to address those. And then I just want to wrap up with 2 items that I know this committee has a high interest in.
Well, I've got a question. I don't see if it's, have y'all had to participate in any of the forest fires out in California?
We have participated in the forest fires out in California. Last fire season, we sent out 70 good Georgian wildfire firefighters to go out west to participate in that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, we were having problems with them getting reimbursed in a timely manner. Have they been paid?
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you raised that. So internally, we made a decision to fund that. In the past, our agency had taken an approach where it would take anywhere from 6 to 9 to sometimes even 12 months before an employee would be reimbursed for their services when they went out west. Largely, that was being driven by the reimbursement the agency was receiving from the federal government. So we took a different approach, and through managing our cash flow very closely inside our agency and through renegotiating our contract with our federal partners, the U.S. Forest Service, we've gotten our reimbursements in in a much quicker fashion. I'm proud to tell you that 98% of our employees got paid within 30 days. So generally in their second paycheck back from when they return. Been a huge boost in morale because of that. And we really anticipate more of our employees signing up and going out and helping our Western neighbors. That's a great benefit for us because they go out, they learn, they get training, they get experience, they bring that back to Georgia and help us protect our critical resource here in our state as well. So yeah, great question. We're doing that internally. This year it worked great, and it's just managing cash flow and it's renegotiating a contract. You know, Michelle and her team and our leadership, it was a change, but we've done it and really proud of the results of that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I am sorry that was happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, good question.
And the next question I have, and maybe the next question I had was the turnover. Are you still having a lot of turnover?
Yes, ma'am. We still are having turnover, and that's what I was going to wrap up my remarks on a statement along those lines.
Okay, all right. I didn't.
Yeah,
mean to
no,
jump ahead. Go
that's a
ahead.
great question. You're anticipating well. We do have our agency turnover. We still have that. It's largely within our ranger workforce and our forester workforce. Our rangers, 400 of our employees, 60% of those rangers have 5 years or less of experience. 60% have 5 years less or less experience. Those are critical employees. They are trained employees. They have a CDL. They are heavy equipment operators, and we start them out right now currently at $30,000. And everyone knows what we're competing against for a CDL truck driver these days. And that's something that, frankly, as new into this role, keeps me up at night thinking about making sure our employees are, first of all, safe in the job that we're asking them to do. And then second of all, making sure that they are able to protect the forests that drive a huge part of our rural economy. So yes, ma'am, we're facing those challenges. We believe the governor's request is a great step forward. We are planning this year also to partner alongside those recommendations that the governor's bringing forward and doing some leadership development, investing time and energy and effort into our employees to help them grow personally and professionally, as well as creating and bolstering our current career ladders that we have. And then also looking at the salary compression issue that our agency faces that roots back all the way to 2008, when the state really kind of stopped giving those cost of a living adjustments. So we'll tackle those internally if we have to, and that's our plan to do so moving forward. Yes, ma'am. And we think those two things those three items partnered with what the governor's doing in his budget and what this body will hopefully agree to can really make a shift in our turnover issue that we face here at the Forestry Commission. Our foresters are the same way. 75% of our foresters have 3 years or less experience. So I look forward to tackling those challenges. I think we can do it. And I know our team, our leadership team at our agency is excited about tackling that issue, and we're looking forward to that moving forward. So that is a big deal. Firefighter, the firefighter property screening program that we have that you are instrumental in being a part of back all the way to 2013, Madam Chairwoman. We have screened over for the state $100 million for rural fire departments all around our state. Our employees have done a tremendous job doing that. Just last year, we screened over $2 million of equipment for local fire departments. And that's with a 9-month off period because of COVID and the ability to get on bases and screen. So really, really proud of that. And I'll also just say that the work that our agency is doing on environmental cabs and the investment that our state's making on that front is really paying off. And that is basically an enclosed cab where our employees not exposed to fire. We have now 63% of our fleet is environmental cab protected. So it's 199 tractors will have environmental cabs on them now. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. And that's key to keeping our employees safe, giving them great working conditions, as best working conditions as we can. So I will stop there. I think that's that concludes the remarks I have, and I'll certainly be willing to entertain any questions that there may be.
Does anybody online have any questions they'd like to ask? Well, thank you. And thank you so much for the job you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job and putting in some innovative things. And we do appreciate the job you're doing for our forestry.
Well, it's a pleasure. So
And any way we can help, we're here. Okay.
Thank you.
Savannah Business and Convention Center. Convention and Center. Is it named Visitors and Convention Center? Savannah Convention Center, excuse me.
Savannah, Georgia Convention Center.
Savannah, Georgia. Okay, that wasn't
The
written. on my
governor
notes.
made sure we got the Georgia in there.
Oh, well, is there another Savannah?
It's still in Savannah. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know there was one Savannah.
It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Mark Smith. I'm the chairman of the Savannah, Georgia Convention Center. We have in the audience Sherry Spinks, our general manager. We want to recognize her for the fine job she's doing down in Savannah. And I bring you good tidings and great news from Savannah. We are on schedule and on budget, and it's the same budget we've had for the last 2 years. We came before you 2 years ago with a request for $253 million, and $160 million of that has been funded. So we're here before you today to ask for the final $93 million that we need to complete the funding. And I think you have a presentation there. You can see we're well underway. We got notice to proceed last February. And after hard bidding and a lot of value engineering and everything, we were able to live within our budget constraints. And we began construction in March of last year, and we are well on our way. It's proven to be a great success. We have over 20 events booked into the new expanded space. So it's working as designed, and we look forward to bringing it in. I'm not here to report to you that we have any cost overruns. I'm not here to ask for any more money due to the international financial situation or products coming from China or anything like that. I'm here to say we are asking for the same amount that we asked for the last 2 years, which is the remaining amount of that is $93 million. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What's the expected completion date?
The expected completion date is September of 2023. And we'll hope you'll join us at the grand opening.
Okay. And when is the first event scheduled, do you know?
Well, we're still having events. The first event that will be, we're open while we're under construction.
Okay, but in
The first big event that uses the entire
Right.
expanded space is in the fall of 24.
Okay. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask one question. Madam Chair, asked one that I wanted to know about the completion date. Did COVID cause any setbacks during the pandemic in your project at all?
Well, with the COVID hit our building very hard, and we went through an arduous period of layoffs and closures, and then we started gradually reopening and everything. COVID has not affected the construction because most of it's outside, and there's a good distance between everybody during the construction period. But we suffered terribly during the pandemic with the operation of the building and burned through a lot of our reserve money and everything as well.
Representative Taxley, do you have a question? Anything else, Representative Jackson? Thank you and good luck. And what about, how's your convention dates going so far
Oh,
with everything happening with COVID? Are you
well,
still-
yeah, we've had some challenges. There've been some disruptions, but we've worked through them with the contractor and everything. And I would like to commend the GSFIC for doing a fine job of overseeing this construction. They have been really a pleasure to work with, and they're really representing the state of Georgia very well on overseeing the actions of the contractor.
Well, what about the events you have currently going on without this new completion of this? Are you
Yep.
still getting lots of?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
conventions?
We're having a record year this year, and we expect to set an all-time record for our performance of the building during this current fiscal year that we're in
Yeah.
right now.
Mhm.
We've been very busy, very busy.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, y'all are doing this over on where the Westin, I guess it's still the Westin Hotel.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that hotel, is it big enough to accommodate all these
Well,
people that be coming in,
y-
additional people?
Well, we have for the last 20 years 22 years we've been open, we're using hotels on both sides of the river,
Uh-huh.
especially when we have large conventions. We do have a plan for a second hotel immediately to the west of the convention center, which we're working on, bringing forward. And so that would be another 400-room hotel on the island.
So I think a lot of people do like to stay near where you're having conventions, don't they?
Yes, ma'am. Well, things are really hopping in Savannah. We just opened the new JW Marriott property Plant Riverside, which represents a $370 million private investment, and many other projects are on the drawing boards, and things are looking really good in Savannah.
How is the crime rate doing in Savannah? Have y'all gotten that under control, or is
Well,
it affecting
yeah,
visitors?
We've had our challenges with that, but it's I think the police are doing a good job, and the mayor is certainly focused on it, and there've been some progress made in that area.
Any other questions? One other question. I know the World Congress Center here has their own, I guess your police force, but I don't think they call it that. Do y'all have that there in Savannah?
No, we don't have our own security force.
Security force, that was an SAT word. I couldn't remember.
Madam Chairman, I would like to point out that we're in the governor's budget for 80 million,
Uh-huh.
but we need 93 to finish the project. And I just want to point that out to you. So if
Okay,
you would take that under advisement, and we'll leave
okay.
it to your discretion and wise judgment as to how we bridge that gap. But I think there was an arbitrary cap that no item can go in the budget more than 80 million. And so, or in the bond package. And so we do have that issue to deal with this appropriation.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, because we could just see that. I knew you said 93 million, but
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
bond package.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming, and come back anytime to see us when you're in the camp.
Thank you. And come see us in Savannah.
I
We'll be up
will.
here next week for Savannah Day. So come have some oysters with us.
I'll be there. Soil and water. Yeah. And they have the birds up with this year.
Good afternoon.
Oh, that way. Oh, good to see you.
Good
to see you.
afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me some time to come discuss our amended budget. I will be brief in that aspect. There's two items in there that are very important to us, but I'd also like to take this opportunity and just kind of give you an update on what the commission's been doing and where we're at, because what we've been able to do, this committee has played a big part in. Last year, I was in front of you discussing a position for a watershed tech to help us out with our watershed dams and doing some of that paperwork and inspections. And I'm here happy to report that that position started September the 1st. And since that time, getting her up to speed, we have completed 33 inspections. And while that might not sound too impressive out of 300 something dams that we need to inspect, keep in mind, up until then, there was never inspections done at all. So we're picking up with that position and moving forward. And on top of that, since FY21, where we started receiving funds for maintenance on these watershed dams, we have completed 52 maintenance projects on these dams. These are not the major rehab projects, but these are projects that get our dams up to compliance with EPD safe dam rules and regulations. And again, that is something until we receive the funding for that, we've never been accomplished. So now in the last 18 months, we have 52 dams that I've never seen a bush hog and never seen a bulldozer to come take some trees off of them. But now we've got these back in good shape. And the last thing I'd like to mention on our watershed dams is since January of 21, we now have 3 dams that are recently permitted. That means that Safe Dams EPD's department recognizes them as safely operating. And I believe, talking to my staff that handles that, we're on pace for this time next year. I could come back and say we have 6, maybe even up to 9 new ones permitted. So with your help with that position and keeping the funding going for the maintenance and the rehab, we're really accomplishing a lot in that department. The last thing I'd mention, because I know this committee has been interested in it in the past, and that's our erosion and sediment control plan reviews. Last year, FY21, we kind of started off when COVID hit thinking, well, maybe we'll see a slowdown in that. And that was not the case. There was 3,600 plans come through us, which is really a tremendous a lot if you look back in the past history of what we do in our office. But I'm happy to report that we have a 14 to 17 day turnaround. Now, that is about a cut in half of what we were seeing 2 years ago or so, when it was a big issue for these developers being able to get their projects up off the ground. I was able to work with this committee, kind of explain the issues and show them the issues. And so I think we're at a very good spot. My staff is happy with the extra help. I know my phone is ringing a lot less often from developers trying to figure out what's going on, because we're getting their plans in and out a lot quicker than what they were used to. So just wanted to share those little tidbits with you. And again, tell this committee, thank you for your help on that. Now, on the small budget, we can be found, and your tracking document on the bottom of page 14. And I believe we are referenced as 13.7. And 13.71 is our increase for agency recruitment and retention that all the other agency heads had spoken on. And I'll let their comments echo mine and just say that my comments echo theirs and just say it's greatly appreciated and needed. And then the last part you see there, the 13.72, is a little less than $170,000, $169,350, and that's for 6 vehicles that we need to keep our folks out on the road doing the good work that I just explained to you that they've been doing. Madam Chair, with that's all I have for you today, but would happily take any questions.
Representative Tankersley.
I'd just like to say thank you for that great work that you've done to make those improvements for our builders. I've had no complaints in probably over a year.
Well, good.
So, and I will tell you, Bullock County and probably North Bryan, the areas that I represent, construction did not slow down during COVID at all. So I know y'all have stayed on top of this and made a difference.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
So I appreciate the job you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'd like to echo what Representative Tankersley said. You're doing a good job to get this under control. And I know you've worked hard and you've learned a lot, and I'm proud of you.
Well, I
And
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am. And I look forward to coming back to discuss big budget with each of you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That wasn't condescending in a sense. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think I got one of those. Well, I didn't bring it with me though. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't, not commissioner, director, what CEO?
It's executive director. for the
Executive,
authority. Yes,
excuse
ma'am.
me. I
That's
didn't get,
all
I
right.
can't get all these titles straight, but you wear many, I tell you, this man wears many hats. If it needs doing at the World Congress Center,
We'll get it done.
he gets it done.
Well, thank
And
you.
we
so-
appreciate everything you've done at the World Congress
Well,
Center.
thank you, ma'am, very much. And I realize too that being last on the agenda comes with some risk involved with that as well.
You're
but-
not last.
Okay, our next.
Or you're not last. You would have been if you hadn't gotten here.
I know. Well, good thing then. I appreciate the opportunity to come before your committee. It really is an honor for us to be able to tell our story each and every year to this committee. It's a vastly different story to tell this year from last year in terms of the journey that we've traveled on over the course of the last several months. And in particular, the underlying theme I would want to make sure you walk away with today is that the convention trade show business is indeed back. We're just wrapping up today the International Production and Processing Expo, or Poultry and Egg, as we commonly refer to it, to over 20,000 attendees and 1,100 exhibitors. So a great show for them. Certainly, it's a rebuilding opportunity for them as well. Their attendance was down about 30% from its peak, but nevertheless, the whole team for this particular meeting went forward and had a wonderful show with a lot of good comments coming from the exhibitors, which are the key, obviously, to their success. And it's a Georgia-based association, so they're here right outside of Atlanta, and I'm very, very pleased and honored that they went forward with their program this year. The rest of the year looks really tremendous. We've had a couple of cancellations associated with the most recent variant, and that caused a lot of their international attendees, which are a big part of the composition of their meeting, not to be able to come. So out attendance exhibitors sort of evaporate, but beyond those two, our calendar for the rest of this fiscal year is very, very strong. And going into fiscal 23, it's even better again. So we're seeing that tremendous rebound in the convention trade show business, which is certainly important for the state of Georgia as well as for us. From a financial perspective, we have moved to a different place than we were at last year. You may recall that over 2 fiscal years, we self-funded out of our reserves, covering our operating deficit, a little over $11 million over the course of 2 fiscal years. This year, we're projecting that we'll come in pretty close to $1 million to the good, maybe $1.5 million to the positive. So that's a tremendous turnaround from where we were at last year when we were confronted with a little over $7 million year-end deficit. So a tremendous turnaround for us and certainly for the representative of the industry here in the state of Georgia. As we go into the years beyond, we're seeing a very steady and strong growth in our association business for 24 through the end of the decade, through 30. So we have bookings out that far. So we're able to sort of get a good glimpse into the future of what the trade show business looks like for the state of Georgia. And it's very, very bright indeed. While we've been about those activities, we've also
been able to work forward on two significant projects that this committee supported in the past, and those are associated with the Andrew Young International Boulevard Pedestrian Promenade and the Transportation Depot, and those are nearing completion. The Pedestrian Promenade is about 95% complete. We're working through the punch list, came in on schedule and within budget. The Transportation Depot is with about 30 to 45 days out from its completion. And again, within budget and on schedule for that. In fact, that one may come in a little bit earlier than anticipated. So we're real excited for those two significant additions and improvements to the convention complex to be realized. And certainly our conventioneers, those that have had the opportunity to use the pedestrian part of it, have really enjoyed the changes that that's represented in creating a safe environment, but also a connection for the entire complex itself. As we go forward, we have one other project that's underway right now, which is the roofing replacement. This committee funded over 2 fiscal years, as well as the General Assembly, two $12 million capital investments into that program. It's underway. The funds that we have been allocated will carry us to about 50 to 55% complete with that project. We had requested through the budgeting process $30 million to just basically knock the rest of the project out. But we're not able to see those funds come into the budget process. So we're seeking from this committee's support for a $5 million capital investment to help us keep that project moving forward. We're going to ask for a similar request of the Senate for a total of $10 million in capital funds that would allow us to go forward with that project. Or keep that project moving forward, I should say. If you look on in your packet, really, excuse me, starting on page 11, we've sort of broken down the roofing project on those areas that are in progress today and their expected completion date. And on page, let me see if I can find it real quickly. I think it's on page 7. Yeah. If you look back on page 18, you'll see the breakout of the projects in terms of fiscal year for funding and what will be on the agenda next. So the green area that you see represented on slide 18 are those projects that are underway in this from fiscal 21 funding. The red areas are projects that were funded in fiscal 22. And then you can see in the blue and the purple, or the bluish purple, the remaining parts of the roof that need to be done. That's on slide 18. There you go.
I think they haven't, did you see page 11?
Okay.
Where are okay, and page 13 too.
Yeah,
I want you to talk about page 13.
Okay. Page 13 is representative of those projects that are underway currently and their expected completion date for those. That's part of the first funding.
This is part of the first phase.
Yes, ma'am. And that's representative of what we're finding on the roof itself. A lot of the without getting too technical on, a lot of the steel that forms the roofing deck, we've seen deteriorate. The roof overall is between 30 to 40 years in age. So it's in all areas of the complex, it's reached its useful life. So we're finding as we go through and make the repairs and putting the new roof, we're finding these types of issues that are depicted on slide 13 and 14, 15, and 16.
Would you explain the thing about the girls volleyball, about how you had to put the things over?
We did
protect the girls?
last year, and we had the girls volleyball. We had 50,000 in for girls volleyball over Easter weekend, and we had some rain that moved through the area. So we, because of the openings in the roof that you saw there, water just comes straight down to the floor. So we put what we call diapers. Basically, it's a canvas piece of material that we put into the roof to capture where the leaks are at. And then as the water goes into that. We check it often and then we'll drain it out when it reaches a level that we need to do that. So it doesn't put too much pressure on the material. But we've got several of those throughout the entire complex that capture water when it rains, because otherwise it falls straight to the floor and either on the volleyball courts or on exhibitor booths or just on attendees as they're walking through there. So that's why the roof is pretty critical for us to get done and important to keep it moving forward. And the request that we've made of this committee, and as I said, we'll make to the Senate, is just to help us keep that project moving. We'll still need funds to complete it, but recognizing that there's a lot of priorities that you'll have to look at as well as others. We wanted to come in with a request that we know would allow us to keep the project moving forward, but recognize we'd still need some additional financial support in the future.
One other thing, would you tell us about how close to completion the hotel is?
Hotel is would be end of 23, calendar 23. Official opening would be in 24.
Are
They'll
you
have a
running close to budget on it?
Yes, ma'am. It's a GMP pricing. So we've locked in all of our subcontracts. We're well over 90% of all the subs under contract with fixed pricing. We're actually have advanced purchased some number of pieces of equipment that we're storing in warehouses just to protect against any future inflation on it. And so we're well underway. It's operating within the GMP pricing that we've contracted with our general contractor, Skanska. And that will right now the schedule is not moving at all. It's a soft opening at the end of 23, official opening in 24. Actually, the official opening is February 1 of 24.
Good, sounds good.
Yeah. And that puts us in a whole different spot financially on a going forward basis because it generates significant excess cash that inures a benefit to the authority that we would redeploy in capital projects. So at that point in time, the only time you may see us would just be to give you a report out and not asking for anything.
Oh, good. Representative Jackson.
Director Attaway, thank you for your work and what you're doing here
Yes,
in the
sir.
state of Georgia. Oh, I'm sorry.
I knew what you meant.
I'm sorry. My mistake.
That's no
That's okay.
problem.
Just one question. The roof, I was looking at all the damage to the roof.
Yes, sir.
Was, when you started the project, was that anticipated? Was that something that was
We
discovered after?
anticipated that there could be some damage to the metal decking on the roof because the water was really just penetrating all the way through the roof and the insulation. So we didn't realize the number of places that we would find, and in particular around some of we have rooftop air handling units that in particular when that was originally installed, there were some gaps between the decking and the housing units that are on top. So that's created some additional challenges as we've gone through there. But all this, we anticipated some, just not the number of places that we're finding it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, do you expect to find the same kind of damage in the other parts
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
roof?
Yes, ma'am. It's real indicative of just the water coming all the way through the roof. It's telling us that where we see that in other spots, we're going to find similar issues there.
Well, it seems very important that you get your roof fixed.
We believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, and
Thank you.
thank you for the job you're
All right.
doing.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.
I think I saw Commissioner Black come in.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good to see you today. Thank you for chance to visit, and thanks for the visit earlier this week. What I have before you today is exactly what we reviewed in full committee last week. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions members of the committee may have. I'm glad Director Attaway is here, and I'm sure will address his own deals, but our numbers are always combined. So the numbers that you see here are all of not just Georgia Department of Agriculture proper, but also the things that are attached to us. So we just put them in. But maybe flipping over to the 22 is on page 3. It's 2.5 million in the governor's budget for the pay increases. The transfer is just that budget realignment, just to kind of I think we've done this a couple of times since I've been doing this job of just kind of to realign some internal things, because there's enough money in the hole, but we have to make sure that we're meeting our program budgets correctly at the end of the year. So we're just requesting, it requested that of OPB, and the governor was recommending that realignment during the 22, the little budget. And then I think Director Attaway's got some money in here for some vehicles that are very important. So other than that, it's kind of plain and simple in our business. But the balance of the presentation is just moves toward 23. Would you like for us to touch any of those bases? I think this is just a little budget stuff. So
we were just
I can maybe
focusing
help
on
everybody get home
we were
quicker.
just focusing on the amended budget.
Yes, ma'am.
All we were focusing on today was the amended budget.
Other than that, we're pretty flat in the governor's recommendations, but happy to, and didn't really have any requests of that are offline for y'all. So we just appreciate your consideration. Liz, I tell you, the folks are the employees are encouraged about the steps that we're taking, and I think that's important. I know we had a discussion the other day a little bit about how some of these things are going to be calculated, and we're learning more about that. And in due time, we'll be able to get the proper calculations on I'm glad that thus far the committee has not asked me how to compute the $2.5 million, because I'm not exactly sure I could answer that question today. But we've all been made aware of some formulas, and I'm certain that OPB's done their math on that, and we trust it.
One thing we didn't touch on, let me ask you a question we didn't touch on the other day that several people have asked me about. Can you give us an update on the Hemp program?
Madam Chair,
How's the Hemp program working? Yeah.
May I step towards you so I can, it's not coming through on the system where I can.
An update on the Hemp program.
Update on the Hemp program. As of, we may have had one or two more that have been added since our visit last week. But we had about 73 growers that had planned for this year. We have, I understand, 70 or so in the pipeline for those deals. We had one or two processors who were choosing to renew this year, who had done so thus far. And I think pretty much another half dozen to 10 that are the ones that we've been having are in somewhere in the process. I'm not aware of any new processors. I will. I like to always do my best to look at a glass half full, but I've always said and been honest during our discussion about hemp that it's a new thing, and there are ups and downs with every new commodity. I'm still looking for an up, and maybe there will be. the CBD oil business has been flooded with imports. To remind even some of your constituents, if they were to ever ask, because, is the Georgia Department of Agriculture going in convenience stores to check that stuff? The answer to that is no, because we have no regulatory authority to do so. Because the Federal Food and Drug Administration has never determined whether that is a food additive, a pharmaceutical, or it is still an unknown quantity. There are no federal protocols for checking it. And so we get a report from time to time when there are buds or flowers or somebody's got a shop, and it looks like, I remember we dealt with the police department in Bainbridge, and I think they wound up reminding a person that was not legal. We did have a situation with a hemp plant that was produced by a non-licensed person up in North Georgia, and they chose to have the hemp plant decorated as a Christmas tree back in December in their business, and that's not acceptable. So I think local authorities dealt with that. But we're inspecting it. We have renewed our contract with Georgia Crop Improvement Association, or they have a subsidiary out of Athens that does the testing. Producers are still paying for the tests, just like we arranged as we started down this road. I'm just not sure there's anybody that's made any money yet doing this. And there are warehouses full of product that has never even been processed. And so I'd like to bring up, I hope one day that somebody will be able to stand behind the microphone and talk about the terrific advances that we've made in this. But I'm afraid I'm not going to be the one making that report.
Well, I know that we have, tried, what can you say?
And
I know at every convenience store you see it for sale and signs saying that it's for sale.
do y'all remember too that, you gave us a couple, 3 positions like the license coordinator, because it just takes we needed a dedicated person to do that. Now that person does some other things when they're not doing this, but we just needed somebody that could focus, because over there, it took us 8 to 10 months, I believe, to even during this employment problem time that we're in, just to find somebody to fill out an application, what we're willing to pay them. We finally have somebody. The law enforcement position, if you remember, one of the best things that could ever happen was when Sheriff Tyson Stevens, we engaged with him. He worked 1 week. And then that's when Sheriff Stevens fell and broke his hip. And then during the hips, when he contracted COVID, and, we lost Tyson back in the late summer. So my understanding, we do have that law enforcement liaison person. We've just hired a bright young man that my folks are real high on. So I think our positions are now filled. We just got to, hopefully the industry will develop.
Any other questions? Does anybody in the audience, anybody on line have a question?
So thank you very much.
Well, thank you,
Y'all
and
have a
thank you
safe
for the
weekend.
job you're doing. We appreciate it. Thank you. Commissioner Pridemore, Public Safety. PSC. We'll just give you another hat, Terry. You can run, I'm sure you can take care of public safety. PSC.
Can we wait till
I knew
tomorrow?
who you were from. Long day.
Great to be with you.
It's good to be with you, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having us, Chairman Houston and members of the House Appropriations Economic Development Subcommittee. and members of the General Assembly. Love this opportunity to be able to present some of the things that are happening at the Georgia Public Service Commission, but especially how they dovetail with our budget. You received a handout that talks a little bit about some of the things that we have going on in 2022, as well as some existing projects. It's going to be a very busy year at the Georgia Public Service Commission because in addition to our regularly scheduled commission-led hearings, which we meet 4 times a month, we're in all year long. We meet twice a month for committee hearings and twice a month for administrative hearings. We also have coming up this year, the 2022 Georgia Power Integrated Resource Plan. That resource plan sets a 20-year strategic goal relative to electricity generation, transmission, distribution, system security, resiliency, waste management, affordability programs, storm recovery, solar and fleet transition, and so much more. This is part of the regulatory compact with the Georgia Power Company that's been happening at the PSC since it was established. A Georgia Power rate case is also before us this year, an Atlanta gas site rate review, and 2 additional cases on Plant Vogtle Units 3 and 4. The Public Service Commission would like to thank Governor Brian Kemp for his proposed budget that included much needed raises for PSC employees, as well as funds for implementing a new e-filing system. We recently fully implemented the PeopleSoft financial system and are now using the same technology for agency management as other state agencies are. When the PSC holds rate cases, though, we are up against some of the most highly paid utility attorneys and analysts that there are. And the way that our regulatory structure works is not unique to Georgia. This is how all 50 states' regulatory structure works, where we have staff that presents both sides of an argument. And they'll come up with that litigation position so that commissioners have both sides to be able to glean and understand what exactly is the company has filed. And not just for an IRP or for a rate case, pretty much for all of the cases that we have. So our advisory staff and our adversary staff give us both an engineering, a financial point of view, and sometimes a legal point of view. With that, I can't stress enough how much that staff really does contribute to helping us save money and helping this, not only the state save money, but most importantly, ratepayers save money. I asked staff after last week's joint committee hearing to kind of go through and let's really put some numbers behind this. So to date, the Georgia Public Service Commission has reduced the return on equity to Georgia Power related to Plant Vogtle. At the time that the NCCR tariff was passed by the General Assembly, the ROE was established at 11%. The PSC has reduced it to 4%, which totals a $1.7 billion savings to ratepayers. Currently, the average monthly customer bill on that NCCR tariff is $3. When it started at a lower rate, and as construction continued to peak, of course, that amount continued to rise. At today's standards, if we were still calculating at the original 11%, what we would see is we'd see an average customer bill every month of $15 for the tariff versus the $3. So it's that kind of work that the PSC staff does, especially in financial modeling and legal assistance, to be able to make sure that we can get the best possible rate of return for ratepayers. That work is not just exclusive to Georgia Power, it's across the board in all of the cases that we do. Last year, we worked on the implementation of House Bill 144, which saw new rural broadband connectivity through the EMCs. 244. And then before that, we implemented Senate Bill 2 back from 2019. Through that, our staff does all of the cost allocation work to ensure that EMC electric ratepayers are not paying for broadband and that the health of the EMC financially is still there so that more broadband customers could be connected. We did that with basically by not hiring, and we did it internally and saved a little bit of money. We're looking this year at some additional electric vehicle make-ready programs that are going to come our way. We know that electric vehicles are expanding rapidly in the state of Georgia, and our agency has been charged with make-ready for them. As the PSC has described in previous budget presentations, we do have significantly fewer employees than in the past. We have 73 employees today. And so we asked last year for $150,000, which Chairman Houston, you were so great to carry this bill for us, to let us hire 2 additional pipeline safety personnel. That opened up additional federal revenue that basically the state had just been leaving on the table. And so I'm proud to say that the return on that has been really well managed for the state. In FY 2021, we rose to $1,032,796 in return to the Treasury. That's an increase of $521,000 over the previous year. So those 2 positions have really paid off because we've gotten that federal benefit.
A return like that.
We may be talking to you about something else we can do to increase our score. But it's so important that we operate these pipeline safety programs and all the inspectors out in the field. What's so important is that we're getting everything the federal government makes allowable to us. And so in the past, we'd left some money on the table, and we've got one little area left that I think that we can do to be able to get a little more back.
Well, we want to hear about it with those kind of returns.
Okay. As we move to the Plant Vogel prudency stage, it's going to determine that total cost. And so that's why I'm here today representing the agency as well as my 4 colleagues to ask the committee for $962,388 to fund 9 additional positions. In addition to that, we do have a pending elections lawsuit that just a few days ago, a federal judge has decided to move it to trial, and we're going to have some additional defense costs estimated to be about $150,000. But that is so fresh that I don't even have a prospectus on it yet. So with that, I am open for questions from Chairman of the committee.
I know that you talked to me about additional space and not having enough room for your hearings and everything. And I think you were going to work with, did you ever work with Representative Watson?
Yes,
And
yes, I have.
Okay.
I've spent time with Representative Watson on this issue. Our challenge with our hearing space is due to social distancing and post-pandemic policies. Our hearing space is tight. And so we have to manage the number of people that can come in. We've always had a small hearing space, and frankly, COVID's just made it worse. And so he is helping us identify some other places, maybe throughout Capitol Hill, where we might be able to get some additional space.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? And you'll be getting with us about whatever you need to pull in more federal money.
You got that right.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Appreciate the time. Hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are they on the screen now, or were you putting them up? Okay. Georgia Agricultural Expedition Authority.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's Stephen Shemp, and I have Steve Rogers with me. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, now I can see. I have to sort of turn around. I've got you on this screen. Good afternoon. Good to have y'all with us.
Yes, thank you, and members of the committee. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us this afternoon. We got just a short presentation, and number one thing that we want to convey this afternoon is just how grateful we are to be where we're at right now. Fortunately, this weekend, currently, we have a monster truck show, a barrel racing horse show going on, a coin show, and we're hosting the Georgia Agricultural Association of Agricultural Fairs. So we are very busy, and we are grateful for that, because there were.
Well, thank you for having time to talk to us with all that going on.
Yes, ma'am. No, we would make time, but I'm going to turn it over to Steve Rogers. We are fortunate, and Steve is our CFO. We are grateful that we're in a pretty good financial state right now, and that's thanks to members of your committee and appropriations, and of course the governor's office and everybody involved in helping us get through some pretty tough times. And we just want to convey our thanks to y'all. There are about 57 very grateful employees in Perry, Georgia, that we made it through that pandemic, and we couldn't have done it alone. So we thank you for that. And now I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you, Chairwoman. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Sent a little package in with some data that relates to our experience with the pandemic and our recovery. You know, the governor's office and legislature were very generous to us in spring of last year and gave us a supplemental apportionment to get us to the next Georgia National Fair. In November, we were asked to provide kind of a laundry list of what normally I would think of as capital budget requests, and that's included in your handout, related to things that, much like the World Congress Center, we're looking at 30-year-old roofs too, as well as other things that have accumulated over time in a facility that is the original buildings are all 30 years old. We made that list as requested. It focuses on some things that we think are absolutely necessary to event hosting, as well as Stephen did not mention it. We will be meeting with the architect next week related to the construction of a hotel on the north side of Miller Murphy Howard. And so part of that request had to do with renovating and updating Miller Murphy Howard to make it a premier convention facility. The hotel will be attached, and we're really excited that this process has moved forward like it has. We look at those things and realize that there's business here that we can pick up and do things, special things with. This GAF convention we're hosting this week, we expect to see it again, and an attached hotel will make that even a bigger event, we believe, as well as hosting other things that could go into our convention facility. Our budget from the governor was relatively flat for amended fiscal 22. We did not have any specific requests related to that. We have looked over the budget and studied the potential personnel recommendations in that budget, and probably our only concern was the cost of those items and funding related to them. So that is probably our only question as we go forward with the amended 22 budget. Is we want to be sure that we can afford to provide for our staff what every other state employee is getting. I believe that those were the high points I wanted to hit. I know we supposedly last on the agenda, and I want to thank you again for letting us be with you.
You're asking for the $5,000 per employee?
Yes, ma'am. That's what, well, when we cost it out for us, we've got right now roughly 57 to 60 employees. Well, that's $300,000 plus the associated cost of the benefits that go with that. And a one-time expense is, one thing, but that would be an ongoing annual expense that we would incur. So that's the reason we were a little concerned. I've talked to some other friends at authorities, and I think most of the other authorities are in the same boat we're in. They were not funded in the budget. And of course, that obviously depends on what finally comes out in the budget.
How does the pay to people in the authority compare with the state employees' pay?
I would say that it's relatively similar. I mean, we look across the state. Of course, every state employee's is public information, their salary. So we kind of take a peek across the state for when we're comparing an IT person, or we'll look into other agencies and see if there's anything comparable. We'll do a lot of calling of other agencies as well. I think we're competitive. We've got Houston County is exploding, this area of middle Georgia, with industry. The competitiveness right now for an electrician, for example, is amazing. What if I don't mean this, but if I could go back to school, it'd be to be an electrician. The demand for them, the labor work, our industry, and we have to, in my word, stay competitive with what's in our area. And I think we're right in line with where we're at.
I think, Madam Chairwoman, at our last board meeting, one of the board members asked the question, what's your biggest challenge? And I said, staffing. We laid off 8 or 9 people in spring of 20 when COVID, basically with cancellation of events, shut us down for 3 months. We've been trying to hire like crazy. We still down those 8 or 9 spots. So that coupled with the succession planning of each department on the ground, one of the things I told them that really concerns me is having quality number 2 people in each department. You know, I'm happy with our department heads, but some of them don't have somebody that could step up and take their place if they were to be gone or be ill or anything like that. And so that is really a big focus for us in the next 2 to 3 years, is being sure that we're identifying, and as Stephen says, in a highly competitive environment, paying them to keep them in state employment, just like the governor, proposed.
I tell you, everybody we've talked to are having trouble getting.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't help you any to hear this. But
No, we understand.
everybody's in the same boat.
I
And
have
understand
friends.
where you're coming from. What is the projected, when you finish the motel, what is the projected annual income that you'll get from the motel?
It should be in
Hotel,
excess.
excuse me, hotel. I think it's a
Right.
hotel.
Well, it'll
I
depend a lot
haven't
on.
seen the plans to it. Have y'all got plans?
We've got a rendering. I can tell you it's a Marriott product, Fairfield. It'll be a dual brand, Fairfield, and then a home too, which is kind of an extended stay for those who are either showing horses that are here for a week. I mean, it's like a small little apartment. And we're using the same folks that built the Westin on Jekyll Island.
Okay.
It was LNW Hospitality. They've converted and joined partners with its retreat properties or something like that. It just happened, so I'm not sure exactly what. But
What is the estimate return on your investment?
well, it's a land lease to them, so we'll get between 2 and 3% of gross revenue. So food and beverage will have a lot to do with that, but we're probably looking at an income to us of about 150,000, maybe directly from the hotel. But the offsetting of that is with the hotel is the booking of Miller Murphy, Howard, Georgia Grown Building, all of our commercial side buildings that should push us up. I want to say another $200,000 a year in rental income. So in total, I'm hoping for between $350,000 and $400,000 it brings to us annually.
That will be good.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank y'all for the job y'all are doing. And do we have any questions? What about, we've already talked about the labor impact and the financial, okay. But things seem to be going along. What about your bookings for the next year? Are they?
They're fantastic. We're booked. It's our horse shows. We have about 20 shows in the waiting that would like dates to come in that we can't service them. We're rented out completely. We've got some new events coming online. May Days is a big one that we're having, as a carnival that we came up with as a kind of a booster to COVID. We'll be hosting that again this year, and that was a great revenue for us. We put a little over $600,000 in the bank off of May Days in a 10-day event. So we're wide open, and we're not going to slow down. We've got our foot on the gas pedal, and we know we're trying to get into a position. We don't ever want to go into where we were during COVID. Maybe to have a little padding would be a great thing. So
Another big event we've got coming in June that's seldom comes east of the Mississippi River is the National Junior High School Rodeo. An event we got from Wyoming, I think. They'll be here for 22 and 23. So they will take up 10 days in June.
be
Well,
up.
I just want to thank y'all for welcoming Georgia's foster families to the fair this year. And
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much. Because
Okay.
this is our state fair and these children are our children, and thank you for
Absolutely.
having them.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, and
All right.
let us know what we can do to help, and we'll be on it, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank y'all all for coming.
Thank you.
If there are no questions, and we'll be adjourned for the today, in fact, unless I hear from someone else. Does anybody in the audience want to tell us something? Y'all have anything y'all want to say? Y'all sat here real patiently the whole time, so we'll be glad to hear from y'all if you have something you'd like to tell us. Thank you and have a great weekend.